Composting is one of the most powerful ways to recycle organic matter back into your soil. But let's be honest, waiting 6 months to a year for finished compost can feel like forever. What if there was an old farming trick, once widely used but eventually pushed aside, that could cut that time in half? Well, there is. Gardeners and farmers alike are rediscovering this banned method, and it might just change the way you compost forever. The method revolves around using animal manure and urine-soaked bedding as an accelerator. Long before synthetic fertilizers flooded the market, farmers relied on the natural nitrogen found in livestock waste to supercharge their compost heaps. In fact, agricultural manuals from over a century ago describe the process as the fastest way to turn raw plant matter into humus-rich soil food. So why did it disappear? With the rise of chemical fertilizers in the mid-20th century, traditional manure-based systems were pushed aside, and in some regions, restrictions were put in place due to fears about pathogens and odors. But for small-scale gardeners and homesteaders who do it right, this old trick is perfectly safe and incredibly effective. Here's how it works. A normal compost pile often takes months to heat up and break down fully, largely because the balance of carbon and nitrogen isn't quite right. Kitchen scraps, dried leaves, straw, and weeds are all valuable, but they lean heavily on the carbon side of the equation. Without enough nitrogen to balance them, the decomposition process drags on. This is where the farm trick comes in. Adding layers of manure or urine-soaked bedding, like straw, sawdust, or wood shavings from animal stalls, injects an instant nitrogen boost. The result? The compost pile heats up to optimal temperatures much faster, often within just 24 to 48 hours. Once the pile is hot, microbial activity skyrockets. Heat-loving bacteria, fungi, and actinomycetes rush in, breaking down organic matter at an accelerated rate. We're not talking about a slow smolder. We're talking about a roaring biological fire that can hit 140 to 160 degrees Fahrenheit. At this level, weed seeds, harmful bacteria, and pests are destroyed, leaving behind a safe, nutrient-packed compost. With consistent turning and moisture management, what might normally take 6 to 8 months can be finished in as little as 8 to 10 weeks. That's less than half the usual time. Of course, using this method requires some care. Not all manures are created equal. Fresh chicken manure, for example, is extremely high in nitrogen and works almost like rocket fuel for compost. Cow and horse manure are milder but still effective, especially when mixed with urine-soaked bedding. Goat and rabbit manure, often called cold manures, can even be added directly to garden beds, but still help accelerate compost heaps when layered in. The key is moderation. Too much, and your pile can become slimy and smelly. Too little, and it won't heat up enough. Aim for roughly a 3-to-1 ratio of carbon-rich browns, like leaves, straw, or cardboard, to nitrogen-rich greens, such as kitchen scraps, manure, or bedding. Why was this trick considered banned in some places? The fear of contamination. Large-scale factory farming created massive waste management problems, leading to pollution, runoff, and even disease outbreaks. But in a small-scale, controlled compost system, where you manage the pile properly, those risks are minimal. In fact, when done right, the high heat generated kills pathogens naturally. This is why more gardeners today are revisiting the method and proving that the old ways still work, and often better than the new. The best part? This trick is completely free if you have access to farm animals, or if you know a local farmer willing to part with some stall cleanings. Instead of letting manure go to waste, you're recycling it into black gold for your garden. By combining old-world farming wisdom with modern composting practices, regular pile turning, moisture checks, and temperature monitoring, you get the best of both worlds: safety, speed, and fertility. In the end, this banned farm trick isn't so much dangerous as it is misunderstood. When handled correctly, it's one of the most natural, sustainable ways to fast-track composting. Imagine cutting your wait time in half and having piles of rich, crumbly compost ready for planting season. It's a reminder that sometimes the best solutions aren't new at all. They're the forgotten ones, waiting for us to rediscover them.